Nancy, do you want to make sure that that little controller is going to work for you?
Then I can give away my first slide.
Okay, great.
Here, everyone knows where to hear it. Is that legal? I'm kind of glad I'm first because then I'll actually be able to eat. A little nerve-wracking because I'm not sure what I'm about to say. I did bring some pictures, and that always works for me, as an artist. If I was really great at giving talks, I'd probably do more like L.A. Cutler or something. Anyway, I'm happy to be here and happy to get to share what I'm working on. And I've been an artist for about 30 years. Started out in photography, I did performance art. In fact, when I was doing performance, our group swore that we swore off ever doing anything at a dinner or a meal. Because, you can't really compete with food, but here I am. You also cannot, just in case you want to know, compete with babies or animals. So,
Add puppets to the list.
Puppets. Yeah, I work with puppets. I have them on my side. That works. And so the last, however many years, 10 or since 1992, my work has been combining performance and film and becoming more and more film. But now also doing the last project was a film and a comic book. And the project I'm doing now is a comic book. So I don't really know what to call myself because I tend to morph into different things. But the project I'm going to talk about tonight is a comic book. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be included in this project. The artist perspectives for the nation that I think is part of what we're here.
The contract's in the mail.
The contract, yeah, that's what they say. The project that I'm doing now started out last winter, and I don't know if you can. I live with Drew in Otter Creek, and I was on the way home from the airport last winter. Snow's on the ground. I don't know if you can see my friend that I was driving with. I said, "This is where the coyotes like cross the road," and I don't know why I said that. And then she said, "Oh, I think I just saw something." So she turned around, and you can roll that. I happen to have a little point-and-shoot camera with me, so I shot this little. Sorry, I didn't have a tripod.
What do they have?
They have a deer.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, one of them was like, because I was like from here to the windows from them. It looks further away, but the one was like, "I'm getting out of here." And the other one was like, "What? This is good. I'm not leaving." So that one stayed. Then we came back. Drew and I went back the next day to see what we could find. For a while, we couldn't find anything but pink snow. But then we did find the remains. And there was isn't this great for dinner? The next course is going to be venison. See, we should have served venison for my course. There had been quite a party, we could tell. The ravens and crows and everyone must have been in on that. So in the next couple of weeks, I kept encountering coyotes at very close quarters, which, I know they're there, but it was just sort of funny. It was like, from here to there, I just kept running into them. That were noticed. So I thought, well, okay. And I started, getting things from Netflix, like The Wolfman, which this is one of my favorite genres anyway, the monster movie. And in my past films, Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Hyde, these are all been big influences. So I started watching those films, and I also started doing research. My work is generally very heavily involved with research, which you may or may not see in the final product, but it informs it. And this person has a genetic disorder called hypertrichosis. And throughout history, of course, many people have had this condition. Now, I have a condition called Marfan syndrome, and this is a family that's all affected by this condition. And all of my work, I think, has in some way an autobiographical part to it. And this character came out of this period of looking at these ideas, and her name is Lupette. And the comic book I'm working on is called Lupette and the Moon. And there's a lot of dichotomies, I guess, that I'm interested in. And this is one of the pages from the comic book: human, animal, wild, civilized, guilty, sane, innocent, dangerous, safe, insane. You know, all these kinds of things, I think, interest me, like where do we draw these lines and how do we relate to these ideas? And here's another little portrait of Lupette. And this is one of the pages at the teaching hospital where genetics are destiny. And that's one of the other ideas in the piece, because certainly for me, having a genetic condition has hugely impacted my life. You know, I've definitely been that figure in front of, you know, at the teaching hospital many, many times, which, you know, has a lot of mixed emotion with it. You know, want people to learn, but it's not easy to be that example, looked at as a sort of, you know, are you a human being or are you an example of a disorder? Lupette gets, I don't know if you can lower the lights on you a little bit so you can see better, but Lupette gets into some trouble which has to do with misunderstandings, and she, she ends up in a sanatorium, and this is another page where she's exiting the window in the bed. And part of what I want to explore in the comic book is the psychological interior of Lupette, and this is some of the imagery around that. And is anybody familiar with the original werewolf movie, The Wolfman? Anybody do a good Hungarian accent? You'd recognize this if you've seen The Wolfman. Anybody do a Hungarian accent? Because that would be great if you could read this. The way you walk is thorny through no fault of your own. As the rain enters the soil, so tears run to a predestined end. That is the line that's repeated again and again, fulfilled by the gypsy mother of the affected werewolf man. Is that even a sentence? Okay. This t-shirt, well, I made this t-shirt for this event, but I have this one in my suitcase. But
For anybody who'd like.
yeah. You could go on, you know, T-shirt Cafe or whatever. You know, I think part of this project, again, is autobiographical. It's trying to understand myself better, and so I'm in a stage now of trying to embrace, you know, my genetic mutation. So. Because my family wasn't affected, I was just a genetic mutation. Here's a little self-portrait. And, you know, the project has sort of, this project, you know, sometimes I think, why am I even here? Am I socially engaged? I am, but it's not in the in a way the t-shirt's sort of like poking fun at that because I don't necessarily want to wear that banner. I had a person, you should read the essay I wrote, it's going to be so much more articulate. Am I going on and on? Understanding PTSD. If people haven't learned about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, we probably mostly heard about it with people coming back from war, but it certainly can happen with other things. For me, it happened because of extremely life-threatening surgery and experience that I had under emergency conditions, and spent a lot of time in ICU, a lot of time on a ventilator, a lot of time under the effect of drugs, and that caused that condition for me that I'm really happy to be alive, and I think, I'm thankful every day to be alive, and I'm struggling every day with this condition. So art is one way that I deal with it on a personal level, but I'm hoping that the artwork can also have the effect of people learning more about it. I was just down at Brigham and Women's for my checkup, which was excellent, by the way. But they are going to show one of my films to the medical students because people are just really starting. I mean, you can ask a lot of doctors, about do people have PTSD from surgeries, and they'll just say, I don't even know what PTSD is. And they don't think, that this is possible. You were under anesthesia. You don't remember it. It's like, no, it happens. And, you're very glad they did it, but you also need to get treatment early to get better from that as well as the actual physical trauma. So that's one of the things sort of my banner that I'm flying today is trying to raise awareness of PTSD from things in addition to military service and other kinds of trauma. Well, not just military service, from the trauma that people in the service sometimes undergo. And this is another drawing that I did after surgical experience. I mentioned this to my brother's best friend from college is head of pediatric neurology at
Children's Hospital of Philadelphia?
No, but that is a really good place that we may be working with. He's in New York at, I'm gonna look it up for me real quick, I just blanked on it. Anyway, Presbyterian?
New York Presbyterian.
Yeah, I think that's it. And he is really interested in this. In fact, in the context of Night, he said, there's lots of people that are trained and think like me, but there's not a lot of people that train or think like you that are working with us. And because I started noticing these connections between studies that they were doing at MIT and showing how there's evidence in the brain around certain psychiatric problems that show up in brain scans. And I started wondering, what does a brain on PTSD look like? And I started talking about brain scans. And so we want to do a study that might show how music, when I was in ICU, Drew provided me with an iPod with music, which was one of the real lifelines to me of normalcy, if there was anything near normalcy in that experience. And so I wanted to do a study probably with kids, because that's going to be the easiest venue for me to see if we can show that providing people in ICU with headphones and music, with lullabies, simple, human thing like music could help soothe that experience. And I'm also just interested in trying to raise people's awareness about it. So
So feel free to converse about this issue out loud or amongst yourselves. It's really an open forum.
my time.
you start digging into your advertising. You mentioned that, that we want to do a study. Could you talk a little bit about who you're working with to do the ICU study, the effect of music on kids who are in ICU? And also maybe a little bit about some of the obstacles that you've run into and how you're trying to get beyond those.
Well, I was really kind of amazed when Barry Kosofsky, the head of pediatric neurology at New York Presbyterian, when I talked to him and he was like validating my thinking about this and really wanted to work with me. What we're having trouble with is designing a study that is doable because you're most likely to have PTSD from a hospital experience if you have a life-threatening, emergency, traumatic event that's going to land you in ICU for more than 4 days and that you're going to be on a ventilator for an extended period, okay? We can't do brain scans on those people before they go in because they're usually emergency. Because he thought, well, we'll do something with cardiology because the cardiology people and I are really close and they'll work with us. But, if things have to go terribly wrong for a planned cardiac surgery to put you in ICU for more than a few hours, frankly, So we're dealing with these kinds of problems, and it may just be that we have to really rethink how we're thinking about it in terms of whether we're gonna get any kind of baseline. And what Barry said last time we emailed is he feels like we need a guru, somebody who really can help us design a study, that's going to be effective. So it's going to show in some way that, there is, because I said to him, what does a human brain look like on a ventilator? Well, no one really even knows that. No one's really looked to see why it is that being on a ventilator. The obvious thing might be behavioral because, anything that is one more level of not being in control, one more level, or you can't talk, you're totally, you can't move really. It may just be that, but nobody really knows. And, I think there is evidence that once you have PTSD that your brain behaves differently than when you don't. But they're still working on that as well. So, part of me thinks, well, maybe I should just put this study stuff aside and just really work on education. Having just been down at Brigham and Women's and feeling like, I could do a lot just going to teaching hospitals and doing presentations to just raise the awareness to begin with, because so much could be done in ICUs, and it's if you look in the nursing manuals, the stuff is all there. But for some reason it doesn't really happen. Everyone knows that you need to sleep, so there needs to be quiet time. There is none. Everyone knows that you need to have some orientation of day and night. There kind of really isn't any. Everybody knows that it would be soothing to have music or something like that, but it's not really provided. And granted, when you're in an ICU, you are seriously ill, and the first order of business is keeping you alive. But I've gone online and found chat rooms of people that are affected by PTSD, and they're so glad to be alive, and they're ready to commit suicide because they're so miserable from the PTSD. So I'm serious, and it's really sad because they don't even know. I was lucky because my doctor was trained in the military. He right away said, I've known you for a while, I want you to go see a psychiatrist. And he diagnosed it really early in the process, but a lot of people don't. So that's what we're facing, and I'm really at the beginning of this, and I'm not sure how we're going to go. I have gotten interested in the unfortunate acronym CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, where they have a trauma project now that I was, Barry and I may try to collaborate with the two hospitals and see what we can do there. I also have a background, just by the by, worked at Johns Hopkins Hospital for 10 years in the Child Life program and developed TV, interactive television for kids in the hospital there. So that's sort of in my deep, dark past. So I feel I have also a little bit of a toehold of like, you know, it's interesting because I feel like I'm just an artist, so what would an artist know about this stuff? So that's also part of what I'm dealing with.
Do you feel you get treated differently because you're just an artist in the medical profession?
Well, no, but I think if I didn't have somebody like Barry at my shoulder, it would be much harder, you know? I mean, I would also have my old boss who's former director of Child Life at Johns Hopkins, who's renowned within children's hospitals, who would also probably be at my elbow, and I could probably find other people like that. But I think if you don't, you know, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we change courses?